Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. Today we have some interesting news coming from the folks at SideFX. Houdini 19 is here, comes with a whole lot of features, and I believe a lot of you guys have been expecting this, and it makes a lot of sense. We've actually gone through and talked about what's new. You know, we've seen a lot of cool things coming over to Houdini, and today we'll be taking a look at some of these things, how you can work with them, what's new with Houdini, how you can proceed to download Houdini, content section where you can download some free sample files that you can use to study about Houdini, and so much more. So with that said, we're going to dive directly into Houdini 19. So if you go ahead to download Houdini, I'll suggest that if you don't have license, go ahead and get the Houdini Apprentice non-commercial version and explore with this. Actually, that's the version I'm using right now, so you can have fun working with it. So the very first thing which I'd like us to test out is the slides. So I'm just going to go ahead and get the rubber toy. So let's open this up and you can see it right here. For those who don't know about Houdini, it's a procedural tool that you can use to create amazing VFX and all that stuff. You can now actually use Houdini to do some very cool models. Character modeling isn't one of them. Sculpting isn't one of those things that you'll be able to do with Houdini. But if you're looking into making procedural models, or models that you can use as game assets, then you can rely on Houdini to get the most out of it. So moving forward with the rubber toy here, there's actually this cool tool from the folks at Lab, and it is called Slice. Now we've already seen the previous slice, which is the mesh slice, and if I go ahead and turn this on, you can see what the slice looks like because it's a mesh slice, so you can see that it's slicing across the mesh and we're getting some sort of artifact. If we go in and check out the new one, which we can launch as well and type in the word slice, you can see we have the poly slice. Now with the poly slice, there's a couple of nice things, extremely nice things you can do with this one. So first of all, you can slice these as much as you want, depending on the dimension you want. You can slice this bad boy, get some very cool result. You can choose to slice separate, together, connecting. That is up to you. There's certain groups that you can use just in case you like to play with the groups. You also have that. And for the most part, if you like to cap on some of this part, you can also choose to play with the end cap, and all this are groups that you can use. If you would like, for some reason, not to even slice this, and maybe you just want to get not the polygon, but you want to get the polyline, this makes for some interesting stuff that you can now do with this. So in this case, if I go in and choose to expand this section, so you can see that, so we can get something like this, and you can see we can now use the poly slice to create something that looks very interesting like that. We can increase the number of slides that we have, and the cool thing with this is once we do that, we can actually go in and launch in a wireframe. So if I throw that wireframe tool in, you can see we now have crazy wireframe going in. We can choose to reduce the scale of the wireframe just to accommodate for this, and you can now see what we have made. So we now have this very clean looking wireframe that we can now use for whatever we want. You can choose to use the wireframe, or you can choose to use the poly wire, depending on what you want to do. So let's go ahead and get that poly wire. It's all the way down here. So depending on what you want to do, you can use the poly wire to get this very cool looking effect. So let's go in and draw that there. And from here, you can simply use a merge node and merge what you have from here alongside with what you have from here. So in this case, you now have these two bad boys living and breathing together. So with a couple of clicks and a couple of nodes, it's just about 2 nodes, you now have something like this that makes so much sense that you can start working with. But then if you don't want to do all of this with a poly wire, you can go up the hierarchy and switch these to poly. And once you have this here, if you like to explode this, or maybe you want to do some more crazy things with it, of course you can. So we can also go in and type in the word explode and explode this view. And with that, you can start creating some very interesting stuff. Let's go in and take this out, set that to 0, set this to 0, and you can see what we can get. We can have a uniform scale for this, and we can push this out. So if you're thinking about making some animation style stuff like this, this is cool. And there's even way more stuff that the folks at SideFX Lab have actually put together. There's also something you would notice within the viewport if you're coming from Houdini 18. So I do have Houdini 18 open right here. So let me just go ahead and show you guys. So with Houdini 18 open right here, you'd notice that the viewport, there is literally nothing here. We do have just the zoom in and zoom out, which is a 2D pan. But right now, you would notice that we have this. So if you click on this button, you can now do a first person navigation. And this is very, very nice. Now, once you have this done, you can click on first person navigation. And what this will allow you to do is you can now use your mouse to click and look around like you're working in first person. If you press W on your keyboard, you can now move in, so you can walk within your scene. If you hold down shift, you can travel faster, or you can travel slower without holding down shift. If you press S on the keyboard and tap shift, you can travel backwards faster. And of course, you can travel, to your left and also to your right, depending on what you want. And whenever you're done with this, you can just simply turn this off or close this, and this accounts for something that makes sense. Something else that lots of you guys have comments about is the fact that Houdini curve is sort of new, but that isn't true. There has actually been curves in Houdini from the very beginning. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up Houdini 18 so that you guys can see that. So we do have curves, and the curves exist here. So if you click on that curve and you click, you can see you're creating curves, and you can switch these curves from poly to Bezier, and this gives you access to a couple of things. So let's just go ahead and press the enter key. So it gives you access to a couple of things, which means you can control these Bezier handles however you want. Of course, this looks cool, but one thing which you would notice is if you're working with these curves, so if I go ahead and select these curves one more time, and if I'm working with curves like this, and I'm just moving back and forth, moving like so, press the enter key, you would see that our curves seems to be playing, or seems to be, working within a given plane. And that is actually something that they're trying to fix with the new set of curves that now exist with Houdini. So this is the new set of curves that exist with Houdini. You can choose to launch this directly from the node section, or you can do this from the viewport. Either ways, let's just go ahead and explore with that one. So if you go over to the viewport, you would notice that we have the curve tool, and with the curve tool, you can now click and drag, and you notice you have that Bezier handle instead of the point, and you can start doing some nice things. Now, the beautiful thing with this one is once you click and not drag, it makes it a very sharp point. And then once you click and not drag, it makes it a sharp point. But then once you click and drag, it respects that. Click and drag, it respects this. Click and drag, and you can see that. And once you're done, you can just simply, press the enter key to look at it. And something to look at is this, that you would notice that once I navigate across it, it doesn't seem to slant, but rather it is looking straight heads on. So contrary to what you had with the previous one that seems to be slanting like this, and you can even notice with this one that tries to look cool, this seems to be slanting. This other one isn't slanting for any reason. So it's staying all straight, and this looks really, really nice. There's a couple of shortcuts and heads-up display things that you can have access to. For example, if you tap X on your keyboard, C on your keyboard, V on your keyboard, all those things are shortcut keys that you can now use to play with the stuff. And at the same time, you also have a couple of tools here that you can use to manipulate the curves. So next up, let's talk about something else. So if I throw in that simple geometry in here, and let's jump in, and I throw in a line and then throw in a sweep. So it's worth knowing that there are two types of sweep, or actually three types of sweep that now exist in Houdini if you're coming from Houdini 18 and all the way to Houdini 19. So with Houdini 18, we have this sweep, which means you have you actually have three different places. So you can choose to select the backbone, and then you can select this other one. Now, if you do select this originally or primarily, this is what you get with the Houdini lab sweep. And if I launch the next sweep that we also have, you would also notice that we're having technically the same result. So if I also select this and do that, it's almost the same result. And this is not bad, because if you're into poly extruding, you will definitely love this, especially if you like to start creating meshes with this. You can just get these two together, throw in that distance, and it's very easy. With just two lines, you can do the same thing. And I can also wire this over here, and you notice nothing actually changes. This node has had, should I say, a facelift, and it looks even way better right now if you're using Houdini 19. So with Houdini 19, if I jump in and throw in a line and go over to that sweep, you can see it. So there are tiny tweaks that have been made to certain nodes in Houdini. Now you might have to go in and check these ones and play with them to see them. So one of the things you will notice with this sweep that is different from the other sweep that we have. So I'm just going to launch these two so that you guys can see it just for clarity. This is what we get. Okay, so this is what we get with the original sweep. So that's going to be here. And now these are the sweep that we have here is the lab sweep. So this one has the UV attribute computed. So if I turn this on, this is what you can see. So it looks cleaner. Of course, you can also get these other one to look exactly like that, but then you might need to go in and start tweaking things. For example, switching this to round and then going over to the caps and switching this cap to grid, and you can see that, and you have to go in and start playing with the cap size, and then maybe, you know, just start playing with all this stuff. So instead of doing all of that, they've actually made this sweet one that makes a lot of sense, and you can just get things up to speed with it. Now, while we talk about things that you can get up to speed, there's a huge facelift for things that deals with pyro. So right here in Houdini 18, let's say we're looking at the geometry. Previously, actually, if you go over to the pyro section, you can notice that we have basically almost everything that we want. But this is something that makes sense. There is now a particle trail that is now here. And at the same time, the particle burst source, the debris source, and also the pyro solver has been updated. So what do I mean? If I go in and I throw simple geometry, actually we've done that already. So let's go over to where we have the pyro, and I choose to drop a pyro trail. This is going to drop 2 nodes, and the 2 nodes that we have here would deal with the pyro trail path and also the pyro source. And for example, if we would like to get our points to be reading from a simple line like so, we can connect this line right here, and now if we press the playback button, you can see what we have. All right, so you can see that very quick stuff going. Now if we turn this on, which is our real-time playback, and press this one more time, you can see that, and all of this is reading based off the number of points we're having from here. So if we go in and increase this to, let's say 4, for example, bounces back, press the playback button, you can see that. Let's make this 5, I think maybe 6. All right, 6 looks good. So if it bounces back, press the playback button, you can see it. So before the particle trail, what you could do is you can go in and get a simple trail. So we can throw in that trail right about here, and then we can use the trail to control how these particles actually work. So we can play with the trail length, all right, to preserve that. And then we can also play with the increment. And once we bounce this backwards and press the playback button, you can see, you know, we're having fireworks and all that. So you can now go into where we have the source, reduce the number of points that you want to, you know, work with, increase them if this is what you're looking for. And, you know, you can play with the length, all this stuff. All right. All this stuff are things that you can do. Now, the best part is you still have all of this to create things like fireworks and debris and all that stuff. But now in 19, things are actually looking sexier. So in 19, all you need to do is you can get a simple line, and instead of using the pyro trail and all that, we can just simply add a particle trail. So there is now a particle trail which you can use. But one thing which I found out is if you simply go ahead and connect the particle trail right here, you probably wouldn't see anything happening. All right, so you wouldn't see anything going on. So what we did, or what I actually figured out, is if you go over to your pyro and throw in that ballistic part and throw it in here, and what the ballistic part actually does is it picks what you have and it converts it to something like this. So you can choose to increase the life, and then you can also choose to increase the drag, and all these things are here and you can play with them. And of course, if you go over to your points, you can increase the number of points and you can start having things like this. All right, as crazy as Houdini is, you can use this to create some very interesting stuff. You can play with the length depending on what you want. And now if we go in and press the playback button, you see it. All right, now we're seeing that stuff. So some very nice things that you can now do. If we go over to the particle trail now, go over to where we have the shape, we can increase the shape. So here says the start length, we can increase the length. If you want this to stay longer on the frame, you can keep the frame duration, and you can start seeing that sort of star dust kind of thing. So this is also going to be very good for creating things like particles, maybe when you're welding or something like that. I think these might make a lot of sense. So if we bounce this all the way back and press the playback button, you can see this. So you can choose to use this method, or you can choose to use the previous method, but I do think that this one looks pretty clean, and you can now use this for lots and lots of things. So depending on how long you want this to live within your scene, you can keep it. And for sure, if you like to have more of this, less of them, maybe you would like to control this in some very interesting ways, then you have all of these things. and you can start using them for your own interest. Now, it's also worth knowing that KineFX does have a couple of updates to it. The Ragdoll constraint update is now here. Mocap stream, you can now stream from your mocap suit directly into Houdini, and this is definitely going to make animating in Houdini extremely easy. And there's this beautiful live linking that you can work with. At the same time, for those that would like to style, groom, and also render their hairs in Houdini, there is a whole lot of updates for this one. Camera now has an XPU, which is very interesting, especially if you like to use both your CPU and your GPU to do your real-time rendering. In terms of simulation, the simulation has been updated heavily, so you can get way more faster simulation and get some very cool result out of it. Volume on its own now has a huge update, as right now you can choose to interact with the volume brush, which at the same time has interaction with rigid body, and this can help you get some very realistic simulation when working with Houdini and the volume solver as well. And for sure, if you like to check up with Houdini and maybe you like to see some of these updates, you can simply go over to Side Effects, where you can download the fresh copy of Houdini and start playing with it. It makes a lot of sense to also come through and read up on some of the cool new features that is available. For those who like to read up on all this, all right, there is also going to be a link that can bring you here. For those who like to follow up on the conferences, on all of these releases, you know, there's these live events constantly going on in Houdini. You can also come through and check these ones out. If you like to download Houdini and test all these things out, you can come through, download Houdini for Windows, Linux, and also for Mac, and test these things and get them up to speed. And for those looking for contents that they can use to explore more, you can go over to the content library, where you can download all these free HIP files and start working with them. Regardless of what you're doing, you can definitely find something that can get you up to speed. So if you're looking for effects, or maybe you're looking for, you know, destruction, things like that, you're looking for character animation, or maybe you're looking for maybe Houdini digital asset that you can use to kickstart your digital asset creation tools, then you might want to see these ones and check them out. So this is more like it, and of course I'd like to know what you guys think about this one in the comment section. Have you tried Houdini? Do you like working with this tool? Have you worked with it? Do you want to get started with it? Tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section. And of course, if you like this video or you like something from this, you can go ahead and give a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And if you're new here, it's going to be amazing for you to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video or the next update. And until I see you guys in the next one, peace.